Lit. Roll up to the party. Roll up to the party. Roll up to the party. Roll up to the lit. Roll up to the party. Roll up to the party. Roll up to the party. Roll up to the lit. Roll up to the party. Roll up to the party. Roll up to the party. Roll up to the lit. Roll up to the party. Roll up to the party. Roll up to the party. Roll up to the lit. Roll up to the party. Roll up to the party. Roll up to the party. Roll up.
Good morning and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this morning. Boxing Day, yes it is. It's the day that we've all been waiting for. Later on today we will... Wait a minute. Turn that down because I'm getting a bit of feedback on myself. So it is today. It is a fantastic day. Sun's out. I hope you had a fantastic day yesterday. Today, Celtic bring Motherwell to Celtic Park. It is a game. It's another game that we must win. It's an important time of year. But I'm going to talk about the team. Later on today, we are doing the Boxing Day Live for the Celtic Foundation, and as it's sitting right now, we're sitting at £1,286 that we've raised for the Celtic Foundation, which will go towards their Christmas appeal, which I don't know if it's finished already, but it is collecting money for the Celtic Foundation. It is a fantastic organisation because it's the charity arm of Celtic FC, and they've raised nearly £500,000 already this December, which is absolutely fantastic, and we want to add to that. I think it's £412,000 or so, 420,000. I'm not quite sure, but anyway, it's a fantastic amount of money that has been raised, and we are hoping to just finish off the Christmas sort of period by raising as much money as we can today. So sitting at £1,286 is fantastic, and we will be going live 2 hours before, 2 hours before kick-off today. We'll go live. A lot of people going to Celtic Park, so there's not going to be a lot of people. I should have thought it through a bit better because it is a home game. There's generally not as much people online and being able to give. But anyway, it is what it is. I'm sure we'll have a fantastic time, and we will be on live 2 hours before kick-off today. Got a few people in this morning. 71 so far. I'll be at the game today, can't wait. Bring it on, says Lanky, and a lot of other people in the house. Also, no excuses today if you drop points. Well, let's get talking about the game today. It is Celtic that are sitting top of the table, as we all know. We'll get the table up. Can we get the table up and that one? We'll just see the SPFL table. We need to bring that down a bit there so we can get the SPFL table up as well. When you look at the table, we're sitting pretty on the table, aren't we? Sitting on 44 points, and we're way in front. I'm not really worried about the table. I mean, they'll say that they're coming back, but realistically they're not coming back, are they? I mean, Celtic, can you see Celtic dropping 9 points between now and the end of the season to give them a little breathing space? No, I think that we'll put it to bed in the 2nd of January. But then again, it might be a draw of the game in the 2nd of January, but who cares about that? Under Stuart Kettlewell, they are sitting 4th in the league, Motherwell, and sitting there with the fact that they've dropped points. I was hoping that they were going to be putting the Sevconians under a bit of pressure. I do expect them to come out and play some fantastic football today. One player that is expected to play for Motherwell will be Lennon Miller, and he's been talking in the media about the fact that he's superstitious before games. He is superstitious, and so am I, so I'm drinking Huntiers this morning. But he says he has a few rituals that he does before the games. He says that he didn't have Christmas turkey yesterday. He had chicken and pasta with a couple of pigs in blankets. Can you say that in this day and age? Is it politically correct to say pigs in blankets? Don't care, that's what they're called, isn't it? Who cares? If you feel offended today, fuck off. That's what I say. Anyway, He's a player that Motherwell might not have tasted victory, it says, before since December 2015. Remember, there was a long time ago that Motherwell was our bogey team, and then it turned to Kilmarnock. Motherwell was a bogey team for Celtic for a long time, up until 2015. That was the last time that they won at Celtic Park, but they have taken some points off us in recent times. Lennon Miller is a player that is on the radar, allegedly, of Celtic. I want to briefly talk about the alleged bid, and it's not even an alleged bid. It's, if you read who published the initial story for the Kyogo one, there could be a bid. There could be a bid, but due to the American rules, Kyogo's only on 20 grand a week here. If he leaves Celtic, he's going to double his wages at least. He's going to add another 10 grand. The Americans won't pay Kyogo 30 grand a week, and there is absolutely no chance that Celtic would sell him. So that's why I didn't bother about that story yesterday. I had a day off, and I don't think that the fact that it was, when you seen the initial headline, it was like Celtic could receive an offer. Well, we could receive an offer for Brendan Rodgers. We could receive an offer for Cameron Carter-Vickers. We could receive an offer for Rio Hatate. We could receive an offer for Callum McGregor. Do you know what I mean? The whole word could, but then Celtic media yesterday went into a frenzy saying that Kyogo's going to be sold. He's not. It was a nonsense story as far as I was concerned, and that's why I just sat back and had a relaxing day off. Not worried one iota about the whole Kyogo story. Lanky says Lennon Miller's not joining us. He wants to play week in, week out. He's not going to get a game for us, so he's not going to happen 100%, said Lanky. Lanky tends to be the man in the know when it comes to... I think it was a nothing story anyway. I think that Celtic made inquiries about him or asked the questions. But anyway... Andrew, did I enjoy the beach yesterday? It looked far too busy. It was absolute mayhem, Andrew. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. You've got to get down there at about 10 in the morning to get your space. You've got to get down there about 10 in the space. I reckon there was over 15,000 people on the beach yesterday. Absolutely brilliant. Has to be the biggest. And it is the biggest Irish area. And there was some knobend put on, the Bears are out in force. No, you're not. Say if you are out in force, you're in the biggest Irish Catholic area in Spain. It's pretty much known as Little Ireland down in this area. And for some zombies to run about shouting that they're out in force, absolute nonsense, man. Absolute nonsense. It's hilarity. And if they are, do you know what? They're paying their taxes to the Catholic king and the Catholic throne. It's even better. The irony of it, they just don't get it. I love it. Yeah, but it was good. Anyway, midfield is too slow. Captain needs to start driving forward, not sideways or backwards. Said, well, that's an update. Any update on Tierney and Jota? Nah, Tierney may happen. Jota won't happen. Not a talks. They're talking about their birds past. I don't know, you've got to laugh. Anyway, the Lennon Miller story, he's been in the media talking about what he had for Christmas dinner. The £7 million question, and it's not the Kieran Tierney question. I noticed one of the papers is going with Celtic set for £7 million Christmas bonus. They're now just plucking numbers out there, because a few weeks ago it was 8 million, a few days ago it was 5 million, and now the Daily Record are saying it's 7 million. I think that the Scottish media literally do not know what's happening with the price tag of Alexandro Bernabei. I mean, the Brazilians are coming out saying that it's too expensive for them, but the price that they have said has jumped up and down from 10 million to 8 million to down to 5 million euros, not pounds. And they will deal in euros, not in pounds. Most of the South Americans they'll rather trade in euros than pounds. Nobody trades in pounds. But anyway, they're saying, the Daily Record is saying that there's no chance of meeting Celtic's £7 million price tag. I don't think that Celtic are even looking for £7 million for him. I think it's a nonsense story altogether. I think that Celtic would be more than happy to take £5 million maximum for Alexandro Bernabe. I think Celtic would be more than happy to take what they got for them. Never mind adding numbers on and talking complete nonsense about the money that we're trying to get for him. So far in the league, we've went 7 wins, 7 draws, and going for 7 games and 7 wins. There we go. Just reading it. Wingers, Big Red. Yeah, I think it is all going to be about wingers today, and it's going to be about which ones are fit. Anyway, that's Alexandro Bernabe. One dusted. We're going to do a little bit of a lineup prediction. Even though I don't like doing these predictions when there's players out injured. Obviously, Kasper Schmeichel will be between the goals. The right back area is going to be difficult because I don't think there was any pictures of Ali Johnston training yesterday or the day before. But I think he might be okay because Brendan Rodgers said, look, if he's out one game, he's not going to be out the next game. So I think he will be okay. When you really need him, I think we need him over Alice. I don't mean this in a bad way, but Tony Ralston's just not up to it compared to Alistair Johnston. And in all reality, we need better fullbacks in both positions, not just the left back area. Anyway, Trusty, I fully expect him to come back. Will he replace Liam Scales or will he partner Liam Scales? And then it comes down to whether or not Cameron Carter-Vickers is fit. Now, Celtic haven't said if Cameron Carter-Vickers was a reoccurrence of his toe injury or if he was one of the ones that were down with the man flu. Greg Taylor to start. I think Greg Taylor has a chance of starting today. Will today ultimately be one of his last games with Alex Bailly sitting in the background? And Alex Bailly will not be going back to Barcelona in January. So the media ones that are out there saying, Celtic are scared that Alex Bailly will return to Barcelona. No, he will not. He will not return to Barcelona in January. There's nothing to say in the media here that he's going to return to back. Barcelona said a few months ago they're more than happy with the way that he's progressing as a player, and they've never even, it's not part of the conversation to recall the player back to Barcelona. Will Alex Bailly get the nod today? Because if Greg Taylor, I mean, we're days away now, days. If Greg Taylor has not signed a contract within the next week, he's sold. It's as simple as that. And Brendan Rodgers needs to come out and tell us the truth, because coming out every week and saying, I can't remember what he said about Turnbull last year. He just never played Turnbull. He was never asked the questions about Turnbull. I don't think he was asked any in-depth questions last year about the contract situation with Turnbull. Not that I could remember. What would you use? What would you do if French Eddie returns in January? French Eddie's no returning in January. Lanky, Jesus. If it does, one of my best videos ever is we'll make a little bit of a return. One of my best videos ever when I was at games. I wanna be the The media talk complete pish when it comes to Celtic. They just make shit up. Says Andrew. Yes, they do. And you know the fact that Greg Taylor has to tell his agent to do one. What is holding the contract talks? It's money, Lanky. It's just pure money. It's money. It's as simple as that. I mean, I think it's on the table. The contract offer is on the table, and Celtic don't want to pish. Celtic, it's because I'm reading Green Smoke's Engels as pish. We'll lose money on him. No, we won't, Green Smoke. Not a chance. We will not lose money on Arne Engels. He's only 21-year-old, for goodness sake. When you look at players that come through the Celtic B team that are the same age as him, do you know what I mean? But it's like just his heads and tails are further in front of them when it comes to his football talent. So anyway, said months ago his agent is playing hardball. Look, we all know the situation with Taylor. Celtic have put a offer on the table, and his agent have went, nah, we want X amount, and Celtic have went, well, you're not getting X amount. It's as simple as that. This is the offer, take it or leave it. It's a non-negotiable offer, and his agents went, right, fine, we're not accepting it. We're not accepting it. And Celtic have went, well, we're leaving it on the table. That's as far as I can see it. That's the situation. Celtic have went, there's the offer. We will leave it on the table until the 1st of January. And Brendan Rodgers is then going, right, the offer is there. We want Greg Taylor to take the offer. It's as simple as that. But then Brendan Rodgers is also turning around and saying, look, this is the last big payday that he's going to get. So he has to make sure that everything's right for his family. That tells you that the player and his agent want more money than what Celtic are given, and Celtic aren't prepared to budge. Celtic know that they can go out and get Kieran Tierney for free at the end of this season. If it takes a little bit of money for Arsenal, I think that Celtic are prepared to go out and spend that little bit of money. For me, Greg Taylor will be sold in January. I've called it months and months ago that if the situation wasn't cleared up, the exact same scenario will then come into play with what happens with David Turnbull last year. David Turnbull was sold with 3 months left on his contract, and with 3 million for 6 months left on his contract, and Greg Taylor will be sold for around about 3 million also with the 6 months remaining on his contract. Celtic will not allow the player to walk away for free, and to dictate to them that he's walking away for free. They will sell the player to someone down south. It's not been, it's not a hard one to figure out. I mean, if you look at the Celtic scenario, they know what will happen. And Brendan Rodgers has said that some players will move on due to various football circumstances. Now, when Brendan Rodgers says that some players will move on due to certain football circumstances, it means that players that want to get game time will get moved on. Players that aren't good enough will get moved on. And players that have not signed a new contract will get moved on. That's what you read between the lines when Brendan Rodgers says that some players will get moved on due to football circumstances. It is what it is. Anyway, the back four today. Let's get back onto that. Will Greg Taylor start today? Will this ultimately be one of his last games? Or will Brendan Rodgers play him right up until the 2nd of January and make the Sevconian game one of the last games that he'll play for Celtic? I'm going to go with Alistair Johnston to come back into the fold. I'm going to go with Trusty and Cameron Carter-Vickers to come back in. And then it's all down to Brendan Rodgers, what he sees as his best team on the day, and also thinking ahead. I think that Brendan Rodgers needs to be a bit more realistic about the situation with Greg Taylor. And if Greg Taylor's not going to be here in the middle of January, he has to start bringing in Alex Baye from the start. He has to start giving him game time so that he's up to pace, that he's 100% up to pace for a full 90 minutes when it comes to the busy period in January. If he doesn't, Brendan Rodgers is playing he's playing a game, and as much as he might want Greg Taylor to stay, if it comes down to the contract situation, we all know what will happen. Anyway, Bernabe's situation, he will be sold, as far as I'm concerned, but who cares about him? Alex Baye, well, we'll just need to see what Brendan does today. That's the back four that I'm going for. In the middle of the field, Callum McGregor, he's going to be sitting there all day long. And this occasion, I think Paulo Bernardo will get the nod today, because Paulo Bernardo's not done anything wrong when he comes on. He's coming on and he's changing games. He's picking up the pace. He did start the other day, but I think that Paulo Bernardo may get the nod today over Arnie Engels. That's my thinking. Luke McCowan always does good in games like this. Will he get a start today? Because ultimately Brendan Rodgers will want to try and keep people as fresh as possible for the 2nd of January. He'll know that this game should be in the bag today. It's a game at Celtic Park. So for me, he may play Luke McCowan and Paulo Bernardo just to give Rio Hatate that little bit of a rest. Because I think that Rio Hatate will be a big game player for us on the 2nd, and Brendan Rodgers has spoken about the fact that we need to freshen things up. There will be a bit of squad rotation going on, but then again, he might just go with what he thinks is his strongest team, which will be Callum McGregor, Rio Hitase and Paulo Bernardo. I don't think it'll be Arne Engels. I think that he is managing Arne Engels' game time. And he said it about Kuhn last year. Let him get the first 6 months under his belt, and then the player will come good. People saying that Arne Engels is a waste of money. Well, everyone was saying that about Kuhn last year, Nico Kuhn, and they were saying that he was a waste of money. You look back at the comments last December, everyone was like, Kuhn's absolutely rubbish, man. He's never going to make it at Celtic. And look at him now. He's one of the most important players that may be missing today. And if Nico Kuhn is missing today, after a setback on his knee, it'll be interesting to see what Brendan Rodgers says about this situation, because if Nico Kuhn is out for any length of time, it may be detrimental to any points that we're looking to try and get over the next couple of weeks. Anyway, will Dyson Maida come back on instead of Yang? I hope so, because Yang's not the answer, and Dyson did need a bit of game downtime. And then it depends who's going to go up front. Adam either needs minutes, but Kyogo needs goals. So I think that I think they've got a big back line, haven't they, Motherwell? They've got big guys that play at the back, so I think that he may go for this game. I think he may start Adam Ida, but then again, Kyogo needs the confidence of scoring goals. Kyogo needs to start putting the ball in the back of the net. So anyway, I'm not too sure about that. But anyway, Kuhn never cost 11 million, says Green Smoke. I don't see. Celtic fans always go on about the whole Arne Engels thing, and they look at the price tag. Nobody's talking about the fact that Adam Ida cost 9 million and he's not scoring goals. Players do not put the price tags on themselves. You have to look at the age of the player and the potential that the player has. It's not his fault that it cost 11 million. Do you know what's going to happen next year and the year after? And I've said this before, when every single player that Celtic buy are between 5 and 15 million. Every single player. Gone are the days that Celtic are going to go out and they're very, very rarely going to pick up a Luke McCowan for 1 million. It's going to become, especially a player that can make the impact that Luke McCowan can make. Celtic are going to up their game and start spending between 5 and 15 million pounds on every player that they bring in, because they know that that's the quality and that's the benchmark of where the player needs to be at for them to be at Celtic. What are you all going to say then? Oh, but it cost 11 million. In world football today, in European football, 11 million gets you an 18-year-old player for Burnley. Do you know what I mean? Celtic fans need to get a little bit of realisation about, one, where the football club is actually going, and I think it's going in the right direction for once. I think that spending the type of money that we're looking to now spend on players is a good thing, because it gives us that better level of player, ultimately, for the Champions League. When you go back, do you want us to go back to spending £1 million on players and £2 million on players? Look at the amount of players that have come in between 3 and 4 million over the last couple of years that haven't made it at Celtic. There's £7 million worth of defenders that came in that were bought for under 5 million each, and they've not made the grade. They've not made the grade at Celtic. So anyway, Kuhn cost 3 million, Engels 11 million, totally different. Engels is nearly 6 months in. And our breaks ended playing 4 million over odds for Adam Ida as well. Everybody was saying that Kuhn was a waste of money last year. Engels is younger than Kuhn, so you've got to put it into perspective. And ultimately, Matt O'Reilly cost 1.5 million. Matt O'Reilly could not, and put this into perspective, Matt O'Reilly could not get a game. He could not get a game. Matt O'Reilly could not get a game for Celtic. He was on the bench. Aaron Moy was the better player. Aaron Moy kept Matt O'Reilly out the team. Aaron Moy retires from football, and then Matt O'Reilly steps up to the plate. Matt O'Reilly has the season of his life. He gets 2 international call-ups, and then he's sold for 25 million. You're only ever 1 season away from becoming a wonderful player. Nobody in that first season, nobody, not one single Celtic fan would have turned around when Matt O'Reilly could not get off the bench. Nobody would say, Matt O'Reilly's a £25 million player. Nobody. Absolutely no one. No one. Why are you complaining about Celtic spending real money? Exactly. Green smoke. 3 million, 11 million. Big difference. Oh, just wait till they start spending 15 million on every single player. Anyway, just remember the Just Giving page. The Just Giving page, this is the day we're sitting on £1,286. We are sitting on £1,286, which is a fantastic amount for the Celtic Foundation. Anyway, we've had a look at from that. Cameron Carter, Vickers and Trusty, I think will be back today. What other Celtic news is kicking around this morning? Not a lot. Reporter in the know. Kids for Gardens back on the radar. Mikel Ange Balwishka is back in. There's no new names. It's not exactly hard to think about who Celtic are going to go for. It's not but anyway. There's no new names. Late on Wednesday night. Europe, stars. It's a nothing story. Absolutely nothing story. There's no news. At 20%, I think he'll make a profit. It says Anton Rogan's left foot. Rogic kept out Matt O'Reilly before Moy. Exactly. And Tom Rogic couldn't get a game for 90 minutes. I mean, because the drop in the standards over the last while has been piss poor, says Green Smoke. The drop in standards over the last while, but the drop in standards. And as a team, it's very, very difficult for when you look at the standards that we had at the beginning of the season. When you look at the pre-season that we had, Brendan Rodgers set us up to get off to a flying start in the Champions. Right, Green Smoke. Let's look at this realistically and look at the season to where we are so far. When we look back to the Tour of America, Brendan Rodgers set us up nicely and set the formation up and set us up in an attacking sense to play Manchester City and Chelsea as if it was two games in the Champions League. He set these games up to make sure that we were ready for the Champions League and that we got off to a flyer in the Champions League, and we did. Right? So everything that was focused pre-season to getting off to a flyer in the Champions League and being ready for this time of the season. For players to try and maintain that standard for a full season when you're playing 3 games a week in modern football is very, very difficult. It's very difficult. You go through a period of September and October where you're playing 3 games a week. You get a little bit of a null in November and October when you've got the international breaks, right? You then come into December where you're playing 3 high-pressured games a week and it's a busy period. For players to maintain their optimum, and you've got to remember, Brendan Rodgers takes the players on a fitness journey at Celtic, and he always gets them hitting their peak performance in the last quarter. Brendan Rodgers has spoke about it as blocks of games. Now, it was all about being competitive and winning your blocks of games and coming out at the end of a block. He's never spoke about these blocks since November. Right, you have to listen to what Brendan says. Since about November, he's never really spoke about this important block of games. Right, he did that right up all the way through the Champions League to the beginning of November. Because there was a bit less games in November, he stops talking about it. The dip in form comes from international breaks, the team's been on a fantastic run, but then they'd go away for 2 weeks and they're not playing. That's happened twice this season already. We've had 2 international breaks before we get to December. It's hard for a group of players to maintain. We're not Barcelona. Look at Real Madrid. With £1.3 billion squad. 1.3 billion, right? They're languishing in the Champions League. They've had a terrible Champions League. They've been terrible in the league in Spain. Do you know what I mean? They've not had the best of seasons. And it's hard for players. The fact that we've got to where we are in the season so far, still in with a shout of playing in the last 16 of the Champions League, which is absolutely amazing. Still being in a shout with, well, obviously going to go for the treble. We've got 1 trophy in the bank already, but we're bemoaning the fact that the standards have dropped. Look at the standards of the performances at the first half of last season compared to the second half of the last season. Brendan Rodgers always gets the players to get their peak performance for the last quarter. He calls it Celtic time. You know, this is the time that you turn up. This is Celtic time. This is when we make the money, right? This is when you win things. You never win things. Okay, we've won 1 cup already, but the longevity of the squad, you need to keep on winning, and you can't win every game playing brilliant football. Manchester United under Alex Ferguson, there was some games that when he was in charge, and I used to call it the Fergie League, because Fergie was so dominant at the time for Manchester United. Even his teams went through games where they had to win ugly. They didn't play perfect football every week. You know, they used to call it Fergie time when it went into extra time, because it was like, oh, they're waiting on Fergie's team to score. So you've got to look at the overall picture. The overall picture, I think we're doing fine, but there is room for improvement. Brendan Rodgers knows there's room for improvement. There's players in positions that he wants moved out that aren't going to hit the standard of Celtic. For one, there's no way am I pushing any type of panic button when it comes to the money that we're spending, what players are going through. Arne Engels is only into these first 6 months of coming to a brand new country. He's 21-year-old. He's got no family round about him. He's got no mates round about him. Do you know, he doesn't have... When you move to a new country, it takes you about a year to get settled. So saying that we're going to lose money on Arne Engels, I don't think we will. I think he's going to be at Celtic for 3 or 4 years, and he'll go on a journey. And once he starts clicking form in the middle, you've got to remember as well, Arne Engels hasn't found an ideal partnership. For me, the ideal partnership is Paulo Bernardo and Arne Engels, but you've got Rio Hatate in the mix. As well. Until Rio Hatate moves on, you're never going to really see a really settled midfield with those 2 players. It's only once you get that, maybe Celtic will go out and buy another holding midfield player. You never know, to allow Callum McGregor to go back into his natural position, and then Callum McGregor then becomes the ideal partner for Arne Engels. It's a squad game. But anyway, let's jump back into the comments. Once we bring that centre midfield from Leon, says Lanky, it means Calmac can move further. That's just what I was talking about, Lanky. The fact that it's a squad game, and I think that because we've finally got a manager that is prepared to rotate the squad at this time of year, you know, he doesn't have what you would call a settled 11. There's no such thing as a settled 11 now, and especially the level that we hope to compete at on an ongoing basis. If we have any aspirations to compete in the Champions League and finish top 16, top 8 on an ongoing basis, you need to lose sight of the fact that you're going to have to have 2 fantastic players for every position. Not a Tony Ralston, not a Stephen Welsh. You're going to have better players than them. If it means bringing Kieran Tierney back, is he a better quality of player? Well, some would say that he's past it, he's injury prone, but quality-wise, he's in there doing it. Anyway, Hazel says, we're halfway through the season, starting to see burnout. It says to me that we don't have good subs. We thought hopefully Brendan Rodgers will go over that in January. Forgot for squad rotation that's needed. Hazel, I don't think that it's burnout. Or I don't think it's burnout. I don't think it's burnout at all. What I think is the players that are coming in are not to the standard that we've had the players perform at the beginning of the season. Our first team 11, this is our first team 11, all day long, right? Alistair Johnston, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Trusty. Right now, it's Greg Taylor, right? That's your back four, starting all day long. Say what you want about Scales, he's not as fast as Trusty. The understanding that Trusty and Cameron Carter-Vickers has got, I think, is better than Scales. And the fact that Trusty's got that speed. So that's your back four. That's your guaranteed start back four every week if everyone's fit. Going into midfield, your guaranteed start. Callum McGregor, Rio Hatate, and A.N. Other. Whether it's Paolo Bernardo or Arne Engels or Luke McCowan. Right? You've got a definite two in there every week that is not getting dropped, and it's Rio Hatate, Callum McGregor. You've then got three players trying to get that other number position in the midfield. Now that's the only other position that I would say was in doubt. But you've got three players fighting for that position. Up front, it's an easy one. You've got Kuhn, you've got Dyson Maeda, and you've got Kyogo. That's your three starters. That's your perfect starting 11. When it comes to the players that are not playing week in, week out, Brendan Rodgers has said, look, it's difficult for these players that are not getting a full 90 minutes. When they're getting 5 minutes here and there, they're not getting up to speed of the game. They're not getting up to the way that we play. The intensity has dropped a bit. We've seen it against Falkirk at the beginning of the season. When we played Falkirk at the beginning of the season, Brendan Rodgers made a load of changes and we toiled in the game. Brendan Rodgers then reverted back and brought all the first team players on, and then we put the game to bed. Brendan Rodgers said it was something that he had to try, and he said he won't be doing it again because there was too many changes in that first team squad. So I don't think there's burnout at all. I just think that the players that we do have are not up to the pace that the current first team squad are, and maybe you'd say they're not good enough. Well, that's for Brendan Rodgers to decide, and that's why people are getting told they could leave Celtic. Lewis Palmer, he'll be gone. Yang, for me, I'm still not convinced with Yang, and I don't think Brendan Rodgers is ultimately convinced that Yang can go to the highest level in European football. I don't think Brendan is convinced of that at all. When you look at Mark Nabrowski, we've spent 4.3 million on him. Brendan Rodgers doesn't rate him. I think Brendan Rodgers has told him to go. When you look at Lager Belke, he came in for 3 million. Brendan Rodgers said, he's not good enough, let him go, even though he scored for a header. There's players that were brought in under the previous regime when it comes to transfer and stuff. We all know who he is, Mark Lawwell. Mark Lawwell brought in the worst players ever for Brendan Rodgers, and Brendan Rodgers went, no, they're absolutely nonsense, they're shite. So it will be interesting to see the level and quality of player that we bring in January. Mike Powell says McCowan needs to start more. Like I say, Mike, you've got three players fighting out for that one position, if you ask me, and it's difficult for the manager to rotate those three players and for them to be consistently playing at that high level. They've all got the ability. The three players in question have that ability. When you look at Luke McCowan, fantastic engine in the midfield, right? When you look at Paolo Bernardo, just as equally as good. We took him from Benfica. We got him on a 5-year deal. We got him for 3 million. We got him for 3 million less than what Benfica originally had agreed the deal with Celtic. And then you bring in Arne Engels, who is younger than the other two. He's younger than the other two, and he's got just as much potential as the other two. So it's hard for Brendan Rodgers to get the players into that midfield on an ongoing basis. Anyway, that's me done for this morning. Kind of went on a bit of a all over the place this morning, won't we? I will be back 2 hours before kickoff. We'll get the team when it does come out. And we are raising money for the Celtic Foundation. The Boxing Day, it's not that one, I'm just giving. The Boxing Day live event will start 2 hours before kickoff today. And as it stands, we're sitting at £1,286. I'll just double check it. Yes, they're still sitting 64% of the £2,000 target that we have, sitting at 1,286. So I will be back 2 hours before kick-off, and then we'll be full on raising as much money as we can, hopefully, for the Celtic Foundation. And on that note, have an absolutely fantastic day, Celtic fans, wherever you are, all around the world.
Lit. Roll up to the party, roll up to the party, roll up to the party, roll up to the lit. Roll up to the